Hello students, welcome to a new chapter in biology today, that is the cell. The cell is considered to be the unit of life. Why cell is considered to be the unit of life? Let's understand. First, the meaning of a cell. What is a cell? The cell is the structural and the functional unit of life. The cell is considered to be the most basic structural and the functional unit of life. Why basic? Because this is a very fundamental part. Fundamental means very important part of a living organism. Okay, this cell. So that is why it is a basic. That's a fundamental. Now, according to an easy language, suppose we take, we have to understand what is this cell is. So let's understand with an example out here. What is an example? See, suppose I am making a house. This house is made up of 4 walls. These walls are made up of bricks. This wall is made up of brick. And this is a wall. And this is house. So eventually, what is the fundamental unit of this house? That is the bricks. Okay. This whole big house is made up of these small bricks. Without these bricks, a house cannot exist. So same like that, our human body is made up of these cells only. Like, see, what is the function of a cell? Cell, when combined in a group, forms up a tissue. Your tissues form the organs, and your organs form organ system. So basically, a whole human living thing are made up of these cells only. Okay, the fundamental. So that is why this is the structural and the functional unit of life. Now, discovery of a cells. It's very important how this cell got discovered. Let's understand. Discovery of cell. There was one scientist whose name was Robert Hooke. He invented compound microscope. Okay, what is a compound microscope? That I am going to explain you in detail. But before that, we are going to understand that what he discovered. He discovered compound microscope. This Robert Hooke was in a monastery. Okay, he was sitting in a monastery. Monastery means a room where the monks live, saint. Okay, they live. So he has seen that all this monastery, these rooms, are in the form of box. So one day he examined a thin slice of cork. Thin slice of cork means a part of the stem he took and he examined under the compound microscope. So you have seen this kind of a structure like this. See, we can see this. There are formation of the boxes. See, there are the formation of the boxes. So he said that every living thing, every living organism has this cell. So he named it as cella. The word cella is a Greekish language, which means it appears like a box. Like we call it as a cell because for a normal English, cella is a Greek letter. Okay. So this way the name arises of cell from the word cella, which means a box like a compartments. Now we are going to discuss about the different types of the inventions of the microscope. See, in the olden days, it was very difficult to look to the minute objects. Minute means a very small object. It was very difficult to assume, okay, to see this viruses, bacteria. So how it became possible? So the first microscope was invented by Anthony Van Leeuwenhoek. Okay, he was the first scientist who discovered this microscope, and he named it as a simple microscope. Why he named it as a simple microscope? Because as it was a first invention, the word microscope means small. The word micro means small, and scope means you can magnify those images. If you won't be able to see from your naked eye, so you have to take the help of this microscope. So that is why the name has been described like this, microscope. Micro means small and scope means to magnify the image. Then this simple microscope was used for many years. But as we are in the world where the revolution is going to take place, so again the revolution started to take place, and there was a discovery of a new microscope, that is a compound microscope. This compound microscope was quite very powerful than the simple microscope. This compound microscope was very powerful than the compound microscope, because this compound microscope was used to detect viruses, bacteria, etc., etc. Many of the small things, okay, which a simple microscope was not sufficient to magnify. And this compound microscope was discovered by Robert Hooke, as we have mentioned earlier. Then one more microscope came into the existence, that is the electron microscope. See, electrons, where are electrons are present? Inside the atom. Inside the atom there are the electrons. If you can't see the atoms, so how it is possible to see the particles? So that is why there was one more discovery to the science, that is the electron microscope. This electron microscope was used to magnify, to look for the images like protons, which are the subatomic part, to see the subatomic particle, that is protons, electrons and neutrons. And this electron microscope was having 2 lakh times more, it was 2 lakh times more magnificent than the ordinary compound microscope. So see, more powerful microscope has been invented by the time. So this was all about the microscopic, how in the olden days from where it started, and now we are in the modern day era where we can use the electron microscope to assume the subatomic particles. Now cell theory. What does cell theory says? Cell theory means an important points which are quite related to the cell. So what are this? See, so there are 3 important points. That is, cell is the smallest unit of structure of living things. Second, it is unit of function of living things. And this cell arises from the pre-existing cells. So one by one we are going to understand in detail. See, cell is the smallest. We have in the start only we have mentioned this part. Okay, unit of structural of all living things. See, cells, all the cells are of different size and shape. Why all the size and the shapes of the cells are different? Because it can create a identification of the living organisms. As in, all human doesn't look same, as all plants doesn't look same. There would be some of the differences. So who gives these differences? This structure gives these differences. Okay, like see, you have seen a structure of a neuron. Okay, like this last year. So this was a nerve cell. But if you are going to look to the RBCs, so RBCs are something like biconcave, like this. Okay, this is the RBC and this is a neuron cell. So there is a difference between these 2 cells. Okay, so because of this difference, our body structure is bit different in each of the organs. Okay. Second, cell is the unit of function of all living things. See, I have to say you, cell is the unit of function of all the living things. See, cells will have some organelles inside it. What do you mean by organelles? We are going to understand in detail in the further slides. As of now, cell, see, what is the function of this neuron? The function of this neuron is to transmit the message. What is the function of the RBCs? To transport blood to each and every part of the body. To see, different cells have different function to perform. So that means that the cell is the unit of function as well of all living things. This point, that the cell arises from the pre-existing cells, this is a very important one. Why? Suppose, let's take an example to understand. If suppose a person gets a cut, okay, if a person gets a cut, so what happens? We can see that some crashes appear on the skin, but after few days that crashes disappears. Why? Because this cell comes on the place where we have got wounded, where we have got hurt, and there is an arise of a new cell, and that is why it gets covered up by our new skin. Okay, so this says that the cell arises from the pre-existing cells, means that the cells die also and get replaced also. Okay, it get die also and it get replaced also by the time. And all our life start with a single cell, or all living organisms starts up their life with a single cell. In human, we call that single cell as zygote. You have already studied in your 8th standard. Okay, what is a zygote? Zygote means nothing but a single cell. Single cell is called zygote. Now we are going to see how numerous here means how many cells are present in each of the organisms. There, the name itself suggests single cell. That is, bacteria and yeast is a good example. Many small plants and animals are just made up of a single cell. Okay, we can see out here this bacteria, yeast, amoeba, they are all made up of a single cell only. So that is why it is very difficult to see bacteria, yeast. Okay, so we use compound microscope to see them. Now there are some few cell organisms also, like Spirogyra, Volvox. These are just few hundred or few thousand of cells. Okay, they are easily, okay, they are quite more in number than the single cell, but not than the multi-cell. We human beings and plants has a millions and billions of cells inside our human body, so it becomes very difficult to assume. So that is why we call it as a multicellular animals. Okay, multicellular human animals means the human beings, plants, animals, etc. Many of them are called as the multicellular. Now, how small? In the previous slide, we have discussed about in numbers. Now we are going to discuss about how the small the numbers. Okay, how small their size is. Smallest cell, that is bacteria and RBCs in the human body. Okay, this bacteria is very small, that is around 0.3 micrometer to 0.5 micrometer, which is very difficult for the human eyes to predict. So that is why we use compound microscope to examine this RBCs. Okay, again RBCs are not that see, we can't see these RBCs from our naked eye, so we have to use this compound microscopes. So that is why many of a time whenever we feel ill, the doctor always tell us to remove the blood sample report. So why this is? Because they have to examine under the compound microscope whether there is a problem inside the body or not. Now we have seen about the nerve cell. It is the longest. Okay, longest. This is a nerve cell. Typically this is a nerve cell. This is a nerve cell. Okay, you have seen this diagram in your 8th standard. As of now, just we are understanding why these nerve cells are longest, so that they can carry up the message fast from the impulse to the brain. Suppose a hot object has been kept out here. Okay, so how we know that the object is hot? By touching it with our hands. So when you touch with your hand, the impulses, like the message which is carried to the brain, is this nerve cell. Okay, is this nerve cell which is present inside our body. It is the longest. Now we are going to talk about the largest. See, there is a difference between the longest and largest. Largest means in size. Okay, ostrich egg is quite very big. Okay, it is very big. It is visible with our eye. This is the ostrich egg, which is quite big and which is quite visible to a human eye. We do not need any microscope to see this. The longest means that these nerve cells are there inside the body. Okay, our whole bodies are made up of these nerve cells. And this was all about the ostrich egg. Why size of cell is so small? See, different region of cell can communicate with each other rapidly for the cell to function effectively. See, understand one thing. If suppose small the size of, suppose this is a cell, and suppose I make a one more big cell like this. Okay, so inside this there are substances. Suppose there is an oxygen, entry of an oxygen. Okay, inside this there is a supply of oxygen in both this cell. Who will get oxygen fast? Definitely this cell will get this oxygen fast, because it becomes very easy for this oxygen to diffuse inside this cell, because the size is very small, so it becomes very easy. But inside this cell, okay, this B cell, it has to go here, there, everywhere, and it takes up a lot of time to get oxygenated. Okay, so that is why it is very easy to understand that if the smaller the size of the cell, the faster the communication can happen. We can see the faster communication of cell A is quite possible than the cell B. Now, second point is that the cell has the large surface area / volume ratio for the greater diffusion of the substance that is in and out of the cell. Let's understand. Suppose I take a loaf of a bread. Loaf of a bread means like this. You have seen this loaf of a bread. Suppose this is a bread, and I have to bake this bread. Okay, I have to bake this whole bread. So definitely, and suppose if I am going to make a slice of this bread, and I am going to make this in the small pieces like this. So what is going to happen? Who is going to get baked very fast? The answer is this. These bread pieces are going to get baked very fast. Why? Because see, here the surface area of the bread is quite very less, so that is why it takes a lot of time to get baked. But here, if we are going to see, there is a larger surface area. So because of this larger surface area, bread here can bake easily. Here gets baked very easily. because see the numbers are big, right? So we can see the spreading of this bread is very much more than this loaf of bread. That single piece of loaf is smaller in the surface area as compared to these pieces of a bread. So definitely here there would be a greater amount of the baking will be done in this side. So this shows why we need a greater surface area, so that the nutrition inside the cell, that the respiratory, like the oxygen will be needed, water will be needed by these cells. Okay, any damage to the cells can be get easily repaired. Okay, if suppose cell is damaged, so definitely we have to repair this. So if the surface area is more, so the repairing can be done very easily. Now as we said, why the shapes are different. The shapes of the cells are different because it helps to create up the identity. We can easily distinguish between a frog and an elephant. Why? The reason behind this is the shape of this. This is an RBCs, this is an ovum cell, this is a nerve cell, bone cells, sperm cells, smooth muscle cells, columnar epithelial. So this we are going to discuss in the tissue chapters. As of now, these are just important shapes of the cells. Okay. Now let's understand what is the cell organelles. So cell organelles means little organ first. They have their definite shapes, definite structure and definite function. So what is the difference between a word organ and an organelle? What is the difference between a word organ and an organelle? See, organs means which are there inside the human body, but organelles means inside this cell is very small, right? Inside these cells there are different organelles. Right now I am not going to draw a perfect diagram. I am making up a dot out here. These are the different organelles which are present inside this cell. So that is why they are very small than the cells. So that is why they are called organelles. Even they have their definite shape, definite structure and definite function. We are going to understand this in detail. What do you mean by generalized cell? This generalized cell consists of a three part. That is a cell membrane, nucleus and cytoplasm. See, first, suppose I am making a cell. This is a cell. Inside this there would be like this. Okay, the outer part is called cell membrane. This part is called nucleus, and the cytoplasm is this region, okay, which is present inside the cell membrane. Okay, this whole empty space is called the cytoplasm. So what do you mean by a generalized cell? Generalized cell means a basic cell. Each and every cell should have these three features, that it should have a cell membrane for sure, nucleus and cytoplasm. Why should this nucleus part we are going to understand in detail. See, this is the basic structure. This is a plant cell. And this is an animal cell. So we are going to distinguish between those, okay, what is present inside a plant cell and what is not present inside a plant cell. Okay, so we can easily distinguish between these two parts. So as of now you just have to look. Now we are going to start with each and every structure. See, the first structure would be a cell wall. The first, I'm going to make an arrow out here. See, this is a cell wall. Cell wall is the outermost structure. Okay, cell wall is the outermost structure which is only present in the plant cell. This rectangular or a box shape is called a plant cell. This outermost end is called cell wall, or you can call it as a plant cell also, it's fine. Cell wall. This cell wall is non-living. This cell wall is made up of a cellulose. Cellulose, it's a type of a carbohydrate. Okay, this cell wall gives rigidity and the shape to the cell. Okay, rigidity means the toughness, the strong, how turgid this cell wall is. The more the turgidity, the more the strong the shape of the cell is. As it is rigid in nature, it helps in the protection also, because it is very strong in nature. It is freely permeable. Freely permeable here means, freely permeable means it is going to allow every substance to diffuse in. Every substance it can allow. Okay, suppose inside a cell oxygen comes, so it is going to allow that oxygen. Suppose any waste or any intoxic part comes into the cell. Any intoxic means harmful waste. Okay, then too this cell wall is going to allow. That is means freely permeable. Here the word permeable means allowed, and freely means it is going to allow each and every one inside. This cell wall is present only in plant cell. Why it is present only in plant cell? To get protection from the grazing animals, okay, who feeds upon the plants for their daily survival. So the plants need to be very strong. So that is why this cell wall is the outermost wall of the cell. Now we are going to discuss about the cell membrane. The cell membrane is also called as the plasma membrane. This is also called as a plasma membrane. Suppose, as I said, कि this is a cell wall which we are making. Suppose I am making one more wall inside this. This one more wall is called plasma membrane. Okay, as cell wall was dead, but it is living. Cell wall is made up of cellulose, so it is made up of a lipoprotein. Okay, means it is made up of a protein. As this is a living, so it needs some of the nutrition too for survival. The cell wall was rigid, means very strong, but it is not rigid. It is thin and flexible, means easily movable. It regulates entry of certain ions. Why there is a word certain came out here? Certain ion and solutes, because plasma membrane is semi-permeable in nature. What do you mean by semi-permeable in nature? Suppose this cell needs oxygen, so it is going to allow. But suppose any harmful bacteria comes and tries to enter this part, so it is not going to allow this. So this cell is not going to allow this to enter in. This is called semi-permeable. Semi-permeable means it is going to give a restricted entry. Restricted entry means it is going to allow certain only. Matlab very specific it will be. Okay, it is not going to allow each and every substance to come in. But the function the function of the cell wall was freely permeable, means it is going to allow the bacteria also, it is going to allow the oxygen, carbon dioxide, everything it is going to allow. But this membrane, cell membrane or the plasma membrane, is going to allow certain useful substance to come in. Not all of the substance are going to come in. Now what is a cytoplasm? So in a generalized cell we have seen, okay, suppose this is a cell, there is a nucleus, this whole empty space is called the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm. This cytoplasm is semi-liquid substance. Semi-liquid substance means fully it's not kind of a water, it's a semi-liquid, okay, but thick in nature. It is colorless and watery in nature. Watery means like a water, okay, colorless means transparent, you can say. This point is very important because this is the function of the cytoplasm. What is the function of the cytoplasm? That all the chemical reaction is going to take place inside this cytoplasm. All the chemical reaction is going to take place inside this cytoplasm. This cytoplasm is also living in nature, but we are going to understand this chemical reaction part in detail when we will learn about more organs which are present inside this cytoplasm. First, that is a endoplasmic reticulum. This endoplasmic reticulum, its outer end is connected to the cell membrane and the inner end is connected to the nuclear membrane. Suppose, let's understand this part. See, we can see out here. We can see out here that is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay. This is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, again here. So where this endoplasmic is located, this outer end, okay, this outer end means here, this part, this outer end part is connected to the cell membrane here, okay, and the inner end means here, it is connected close to the nuclear membrane. Okay, see, the outer end is connected to the cell membrane and the inner end is connected to the nuclear membrane. See, we can see in this diagram also, this is a perfect nuclear membrane and this is the inner end, and this is the outer end. This outer end is connected to the cell membrane and the inner end is connected to the nuclear membrane. Okay, it is a supportive framework, it provides up the supportive framework of the cell. What do you mean by supportive framework? Supportive framework means giving a shape to this part. It helps to give a shape to the endoplasmic reticulum. This endoplasmic reticulum can be of a two type, that it can be smooth or it can be rough. What do you mean by smooth and rough? See, we can see out here perfectly. See here, this is a rough endoplasmic reticulum. So we can see these small granules out here, we can see out here. So these granules are present, so because of this it has been considered as rough. But if you are going to look at the smooth ones, this is the smooth one, so we can't see any kind of a granules out here. We won't be able to see here, we can't see any of the granules, so that is why it has been considered as the smooth. When we are going to see when we are going to say smooth, when there are no granules present. When there are granules present like this, So we are going to call it as a rough endoplasmic reticulum. What is the function of this endoplasmic reticulum? This provide them the supportive framework. This is one function. Okay, and the major and the main function of this endoplasmic is the synthesis and transport of proteins and fat. Synthesis here means formation. Here in the endoplasmic reticulum there would be a formation and transport of proteins and fats. Like, I just wanted to give you an example. Like, here mom cooks up the food in the kitchen, so she is synthesizing, but the whole family eats of the food in the hall, or okay, in the hall, because in the hall there is a dining table. So it means the kitchen helps in the synthesis of the food, but that food we are going to take and we are going to serve it on the dining table. So same like that, endoplasmic reticulum helps in the formation of proteins and fats, and once these proteins and fats have been made, so it has been transported to the various different organelles inside the cell. Now what are these ribosomes? They are granular, freely scattered, and helps in the synthesis of proteins. See, we have studied about the endoplasmic reticulum. How is the structure like this? Okay, this was the structure of the endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum can be written in a shortcut abbreviation form, that is the ER, and these are the small granules. These small granules are nothing but the ribosomes. Okay, these ribosomes are the granular form. Granules means like this. Okay, we can see out here small red dots. They are freely scattered. Okay, they are present everywhere, and they help in the synthesis of protein. This function is very much important, because in exams they are going to ask, okay, what is the function of a ribosomes? So you should say it helps in the synthesis of protein. It is a place where there is a formation of a proteins. Now let's talk about the Golgi body. Now what do you mean by Golgi body? This name has been given by a scientist, Camillo Golgi. Okay, so he observed under the microscope, so he saw this structure, so he named it as a Golgi. Okay, it is in the form of the vesicles, filaments, or rod, like this. Like this. Filament, we have studied this in the flower chapter, like this. Okay, there was one filament, on this filament there was anther in the flower chapter. So this was the filament, okay, this structure. So same like that, the Golgi apparatus seems to be like filament structure. Where it is located, location is very important, near the nucleus. What is the work of the Golgi body? The work of the Golgi body is in the synthesis, like formation, and the secretion of enzymes, hormones, etc. This hormones means the chemical messengers. These are the chemical messengers, okay, which carries of the information. And this are secretion of enzymes means the enzymes are going to secrete. The enzymes are nothing. These enzymes are the biological catalyst, and everybody knows, okay, what do you mean by catalyst? Catalyst which helps to speed up the reaction. These are considered to be the biological catalyst. Now we are going to discuss about the nucleus. This is very important. Okay, this structure is very important, this nucleus. So this is the basic cell nucleus. Okay, so we have seen this nucleus part, okay, this is a cell and this whole is called the nucleus. See, there are small pores, they are called the nuclear pores. This pore means the hole we can see out here. Okay, this is the nuclear envelope. This nuclear envelope means nuclear membrane only. Nuclear membrane only. How we were having a cell membrane, like this cell membrane, same like that we have a nuclear membrane which is called as the nuclear envelope. Okay, this is a nucleus. Suppose this is a nucleus. Okay, so this structure is called the nuclear envelope, which is the outermost structure. Inside the nucleus there is one more nucleus. Inside the nucleus there is one more nucleus. It is called as the nucleolus. Okay, as inside the cell there was a region called cytoplasm. So same like that. See, this is a nucleus. Inside the nucleus there is one more nucleus which is called nucleolus, and inside this there is a free space which is called the nucleoplasm. As we were having a cytoplasm, we were having a nucleoplasm as well. Okay, the nucleus is also considered to be the brain of the cell. Why it is considered to be the brain of the cell? Without a nucleus a cell cannot survive. Okay, because it regulates and coordinates various life processes of the cell. It helps in the work of the cell division. It contains factors gene which determine heredity. Let's understand this point in detail, but before that, cell division. Let's understand, when we were a single cell, we called it as zygote. This cells eventually divided into two. This two got divided into four. So this was all due to this nucleus only, this cell division. Okay, this was all due to the nucleus only. It regulates and coordinates various life processes of the cell. Like we think from our head, but whenever we have to pick up anything, we pick it by our hands. Okay, we think by our brain, we think by our brain, but we pick the things by our hand. So this is only possible due to this nucleus, because this nucleus helps and regulates the coordinates of various activities. It contains factors genes which determine heredity. Suppose you got a good feature like your height part is very good. Okay, you are very tall. So now a question arises, why you are tall, why you are not short? You are quite tall because your mom or a dad had that feature of the height. Even your mom and dad were quite tall, so that is why that the same genes appeared in you also, so that is why you got this height. So this is all about the nucleus. Okay, in humans there are 46 chromosomes which are present inside the nucleus. We are going to learn these in detail in the further classes. Thank you, students. This was the part 1 of the chapter, that is cell. Thank you, students.